Hi everybody, welcome back to another video. Thank you for tuning in. For those who have stayed with our channel over this time, even though I don't do a lot of updates and videos like most do. And thank you to those who have joined over the last 3 months. I appreciate you taking a look at our information. As I say most of the time with the information I give, take it, see what feels right for you, go with it, see where it leads you on your journey. My goal, as it's always been, particularly when I write the books and the papers, is not to make you think like I do, but to make you think, to question what you understand, what you accept, what you believe, because it's only by doing so that you can grow. If you're stuck in the status quo, you will never grow. So with that in mind, what I wanted to talk about today was information I received while I'm writing my third book. And part of what I'm writing about at this point had to do a little bit with torsion fields. And I've talked a lot about torsion fields in the past, and the fact that torsion fields are all that exist. It exists around all of us and everything else. And the reason I know that is when I was up in Washington a few years ago, I was outside in the woods, sitting, just kind of relaxing with my eyes open. And the trees, we had the trees and the roads and so on out there. And I suddenly watched the reality around me go from a three-dimensional interactive, like we have every day, to becoming a two-dimensional screen, basically like a picture on a movie screen, except there was no depth, no dimension to it. It was just a picture of the trees, the driveway, the rocks, everything that was there was now just on this flat screen, and it wasn't moving, wasn't interactive with it. And I was able to see the lines of code that were around it about the same time. That I saw something like what Neo saw at the end of the Matrix movie, the first one, after he'd get shot and he got up. He looked at Smith and the other agents and he saw the fields of energy, the codes of the Matrix. Only I didn't see the codes. I saw the lines of energy, and I saw the pictures that they were the translation of that vibration, kind of like what the radio station is on when you get it in, you listen to it. I was seeing what they represented, and it wasn't in third dimension like what he saw. Anyway, I saw these lines, and at that moment I realized that my reality and I were one, that there was no separation between myself and the reality around me. And it's the same for everyone else. It's not just me. And I realized that the only difference between myself and this, what I was seeing, this reality that was being projected on this energy screen in front of me, was that I was aware. And I know that nothing else was aware there. And people will ask, well, how did you know? And I can only answer that I simply knew. I wasn't a body. I wasn't moving around inside of it. I was simply an awareness, but I was able to see. And that may be how we operate inside of these torsion fields. And as I said at that time, I realized that there was no separation. The reality and I are one. The reality and each of us are one. And the information that I've gotten when I was writing my book, and that's what happens. I get information when I'm writing. It's sudden knowing about information. I'll be writing, typing, and new information will come out. I'll go back and I'll read it and realize I didn't know it before. And what I realized is that each of us has a torsion field around us, and you call it your auras or your bodies. And within that torsion field, all these vibrations, as I said, and those vibrations represent the reality around you, what you're able to see and translate. For those who read the second book, I talk about what the brain is, and the brain is your translator and a resistor. It's an allegoric translation of a translator, like a radio. It can pick up the different vibrations around you, and it translates them into what we project as a 3D image. Normally it's actually only a 2D image on the screen, but we project it and interact with it, and it becomes a third dimensional type. Even though it doesn't really exist, it is in that sense. So your brain is a translator, but it can only translate the vibrations that are contained within that field around you. Think of it like a recipe book. There are thousands and thousands of recipes out there, but if you have a book and that recipe book only has 50 recipes, that's all you're going to be able to get out of that is those 50. Your torsion field is the very same thing. It limits the vibrations that you're able to translate, thus the reality you're able to perceive and interact with. And when I got that as we grow, as we start to understand and question our reality, become more aware, or awaken as some like to say, what happens is we shift to another aspect of us. Yes, it's an aspect of us, no one else. And the difference is we have a new torsion field. And that torsion field now, instead of having 50 recipes, maybe it has 100 recipes. So now you're able to translate more of the reality around you and see it, more of it, and see it differently than you have before. If you've ever wondered why, when you start to grow and awaken, that people you've had in your life start to disappear. And maybe you'll start seeing things differently as well. The reason for that is within the new torsion field that you've moved to, their vibration does not exist. That's why you're no longer interacting with them. As they say that we are not in vibrational harmony. Well, that's true. They're simply not a part of your torsion field anymore of a vibration that you're able to translate. That's why we lose these people. But the point is, the new information I got is that because each of us has these torsion fields, as we shift from aspect of ourselves to aspect of ourselves, we're able to translate more because of less limitations and more vibrational ability, like getting a bigger radio that has a longer dial so you can get in more stations. And that's essentially what we're doing. And at the same time we do that, we are absorbing the aspect of ourselves that we had just left. And our goal eventually, of course, is to bring in all aspects of our souls back together so that we can have a complete and total experience that we were supposed to have. And we do that by moving from torsion field to torsion field, aspect to aspect of ourselves. Some would call that a walk-in, which is, as I've stated before, is an incorrect term. It's an aspect exchange because we are moving into another aspect of ourselves. The term walk-in indicates a random chance event, and that's bullshit. It doesn't happen that way. Excuse me. Everything that happens is planned and set. So when we move to another aspect of ourselves, it's because we're supposed to, and I call it an aspect exchange because we're moving into another version. And the point of this is that the torsion field around you is what limits the vibrations and the reality that you can perceive. And then as you grow in question, those limitations are being removed. And science would say that we're being able to use more of our brain, which is correct, but it's also incorrect. We're just able to translate more of those vibrations. And we're going to keep doing that if we keep growing and absorb all aspects of ourselves back together so we can become one. So the whole point is that the limitations are like I said, the limitations are within the field around us, just like that cookbook analogy. It's there, and we have to move from that one to another one in order to be able to do that. And again, I know there are torsion fields around everything, because when I related the experience on top of the pyramid, the Mayan pyramid in Coba in Mexico, in which I did energy work, I was directed to go do that, and I found myself suddenly floating above the pyramid, out of my body, so to speak, and I observed the creation of a torsion field around this pyramid, this old pyramid. And I watched it form, and then I watched a small version of that torsion field separate from the the big torsion field around the pyramid, come up and enter my torso. And then I stopped the energy and I was back in my body. But that's the concept, is that, and they've also done studies in a place, I guess it was about 40 miles away from Koba, and they came in with some equipment and they were able to find and see that there were actually torsion fields around some of the other buildings as well. So all that exists is torsion fields, a torsion field of energy and vibration. And as we grow, we move from one to another, we absorb what we were in, and that's what changes our reality, is what is in that torsion field around us as we move from one to another and we absorb aspects of ourselves. So anyway, that's the new information. I can't tell you when the new book is going to be ready yet because I'm only working a part of it, so I'm not even going to go into what it's all relating to. But anyway, that's the information I have for now. Thank you for listening and enjoy your day.